Welcome to another episode of Map Your Money. My name is Arish here, joined with Susanna Barton. Great to have you on the podcast. Susanna is an author and consultant specializing in gerontology to talk to us about her new book, Grand Plans 2.0, and how to mitigate Geri-Drama in 20 easy steps. I know this is going to be very relevant for a lot of our listeners, either them directly or people that they care about and loved ones that they have. But appreciate you taking the time and joining us today, Susanna.
Yeah, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I look forward to a really enlightening conversation about preparing for aging.
Certainly, it's definitely a very relevant conversation and something that matters to a lot of people, and something that a lot of people don't spend enough time thinking about. And life happens, and we want to be prepared for life. So I think it's an important conversation and important to take these different steps to prepare ourselves, prepare our loved ones, and kind of take those steps as necessary. But as always, we like to start with an icebreaker. Usually we just tap on the ice. Today I thought we'd break through the ice completely, do a more in-depth icebreaker, I guess you could say. But kind of on brand. Susanna, have you had any near-death experiences?
Well, I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I have not had a near-death experience. And I want to say that I wish I had, because I think it's really cool, but I'm not going to jinx myself by
Yeah.
saying that. But I think near-death experiences are so cool, and I love hearing stories about them. So I have not, but I have gotten close to people who are approaching near death time in their life and
Sure.
not being prepared for it, and that has given me great pause and actually has inspired a lot of what we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, definitely. I can share a quick near-death experience that I've had since you
I
didn't
can't
have
wait to
one.
hear.
But I was on a plane coming back from Italy with my family. This is a while back. And we're over the Atlantic. Everyone is watching their screens and tuned out like a typical flight. And we hear a really loud bang. And then a siren inside the plane starts going off. I didn't know that was a thing. And all the flight attendants sprint from the back of the plane up to the front. And everyone's freaking out. They're looking around. Everyone's completely silent. I was kind of across from the wing, so we could see the wing, and there's like black smoke coming out of the wing. And no one's really made a reaction or said anything. It's just like complete silence. Everyone's trying to process what's going on. And I think it was like a 4-year-old kid that started screaming, "I don't want to die, mommy. I don't want to
Oh
die." On
my
re-
gosh.
I know, on repeat. It just kept going, and then everyone broke down. And it was probably about 2 or 3 minutes before the flight attendants came over the intercom to tell us anything. That felt like an eternity. 2 to 3 minutes. It felt like forever. They come over and they tell us we'd lost an engine. But it was a yellow level emergency. There's still another engine. We were able to turn around and land, have a fine landing, successful landing in Ireland, stayed the night there, and then we were able to get flown home the next day with a new plane. But
Ugh,
that one was scary.
that is scary. Well, there's so many stories like that of people on airplanes, and yeah, I don't like airplane stories at all. That is so any kind of turbulence, yeah, near death kind of feelings for sure.
Oh yeah, and I know there's been a lot in the news about recent plane and helicopter tragedies, but that one's always stuck close to me, and was definitely a scary moment. And definitely thought, okay, what have we prepared, and are we in a spot where we've done what we needed to be done? And the answer probably was no. So I think it's really important to recognize that life can happen and these things can happen at any point. But
Right.
we'll jump into your book and your background here in a sec, but let's get into it.
Hello, and welcome to Map Your Money, a finance-focused podcast. We exist to simplify the lives of our clients and listeners and to help individuals create the roadmap for their financial future. Calls are pre-screened and the content was pre-recorded. Please note that the content presented is for educational purposes only. We encourage you to consult a financial advisor or conduct your own due diligence before making any investment decisions. All information provided is believed to be reliable but is not guaranteed for accuracy or completeness. This presentation does not constitute investment, legal, or tax advice, nor an offer to buy or sell any security or insurance product. It also does not endorse any third party or their views. All examples are hypothetical and for illustrative purposes only.
All right. So, Susanna, we want to jump into your book mainly. But first, we want to kind of start with your background. What got you interested or into this space, and kind of tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, well, for my entire career, I've been a writer. I worked in journalism for a while, covering business news and later community news, where I was the editor of a very small local newspaper in Jacksonville, Florida. And after that, I worked in communications for a local independent school in Jacksonville and got all sorts of experience mitigating crises and communicating on behalf of the school and doing that kind of thing. And I guess maybe about a year or two before I retired from that work, I started getting weird calls from um, the housekeeper of some older adult friends down in South Florida, and the caregiver was very distraught because I guess things had gotten kind of bad around the house. That the wife was in end stage Parkinson's disease. The husband struggled with some alcohol induced dementia. So as a consequence, bills weren't getting paid. There was fraud. There were just multiple layers. And so the housekeeper asked if I could, as a friend, come help. And so I did, and we tried to put some things in place, and that really didn't matter. So finally I got a hold of their attorney, and he said, well, you're Susanna Barton? Well, surprise, they have appointed you their power of attorney and successor trustee. So I actually could help. And it was the beginning. That was the beginning of one of the hardest things I have ever done in my life. And don't say that lightly. It was very difficult. And so I was working full time and often hiding under my desk, in tears, trying to work through some of their issues, which included, like I mentioned, there was fraud, there was criminal activity, there were bills not being paid, finances were a huge part of it, legal issues, not to mention just caregiving, making sure they were cared for the right way and had people with them around the clock. So anyway, and part of that also was helping them pare back. They had 2 secondary homes which needed to be cleared out to generate resources for their caregiving needs. And it was quite an ordeal. And that lasted, gosh, about over 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So after all of that, I was in kind of shell-shocked by it because so many of the things I was about 50 at the time, and I had no idea any of these crises existed. Like, I wasn't thinking about them for myself or my husband or anyone I knew, even our parents at the time. I mean, none of that had come up. So before he died, my father, he passed away in the middle of all this. He asked me, said, Susanna, what have you learned from all this? And I said that I would never be anyone's power of attorney ever again because it's really hard work.
Yeah.
But upon further reflection, I came up with 20 steps that all adults, no matter your age, starting as early as possible, all things that we can all do now to mitigate what I call Geri-Drama, which is the crises, the wheels falling off the bus, some of the standard things that we can run into during that season of life.
Yeah, and I mean, dealing with it firsthand makes it so real in terms of, okay, these are real issues that people are going to face, and there's a lot of things that you can do to make it easier on your loved ones or prepare for these different things, to make sure your wishes are recognized and you're able to be taken care of even prior,
Right.
as you're aging as well. So. I know your book is about the 20 easy steps to take. You kind of alluded to that, to mitigate this Geri-Drama. And you have them broken into concrete steps, or the musts,
Mhm.
and soft steps, and the shoulds. So I guess let's start with kind of the musts.
Okay.
And these concrete steps. Do you want to just kind of go through the 10 different steps, and then maybe we can dive deeper into a few of them? Or do you want to just highlight a couple of them that you think are most relevant?
Yeah. Well, I guess I could go through the top 10. And I know, um, finances are going to be a big part of this conversation.
Certainly.
So maybe we can circle back to that one. But anyway, I'll start with the first one, which is to write everything down and create a death binder, which is a horrible phrase, but it is kind of
Yeah.
standard for the industry, or it's an in case of file. Just fill it up with all of the things, your passwords, account numbers, people you use on a daily basis to manage your life. Even your obituary, your funeral plans, pack it all in there. Just write it all down. So if someone needs to step in, help you manage your life, it'll all be there, easy to access, and help that person jump in a little quicker. The second thing is I call it lawyer up, but to hire an elder law attorney or an estate planning attorney, or both. And make sure all of your will, all of your legal documents are squared away in your advance directives, although that's part of another step as well. The third, and arguably it should probably be the most important, but it's to get your financial house in order. That means just start thinking about it early, start knowing what some of the expenses are going to be as you approach your second half. And there's just so many opportunities to thrive as we age. So we want to make sure we have the financial resources in place to make good on that. Number 4, advance your directives. So that's getting a little bit more into the advanced directives part of it versus the legal piece. Advanced directives do not require the use of an attorney, although they're certainly familiar with it and can help guide you through those things. But this is, considering how you want to be treated if you medically, if you are unable to make decisions on your own. 5, know your aid ABCs, and that's just to get knowledgeable on some of the programs out there that can support you, looking at Medicaid, Medicare, and any VA benefits that you might be eligible for. 6, find help. That's research professionals who can be available to help you. This is just being cognizant of some of the specialists who are out there, like geriatric care managers, elder law attorneys, even death doulas, which is another. There's just so many wonderful professionals out there in the field of gerontology that can assist, and it pays dividends to know they exist before you are scrambling to find someone to help you.
How would you go about finding like those resources?
Yeah, it's just being knowledgeable, having honest conversations with other friends and relatives who have gone through situations, and asking who they've used to help support you. Sometimes conversations with your attorney can yield suggestions on other people with whom you might want to contract. For example, when I was helping this older couple, their attorney had some suggestions for a geriatric care management firm, which then had some suggestions for caregiving firms and hospice providers. So, some of it is, you just have to talk to one person who can put you into another, but and just paying a little more attention to some of the material out there on these issues. So, all right, I'll keep going. The next one is to educate yourself on the cost, scope, and reality of the life you envision, especially the housing. Senior living is so expensive, no matter what level of it you're looking at. Independent living, CCRCs, continuing care communities, of course, would be the most expensive. But then you get into nursing home care, memory care units, all of that. It's so expensive. And there are 3 ways to pay for when you get into long-term care living arrangements. There are only 3 ways to pay for it, and that is yourself, or a long-term care insurance policy that you may have established for yourself, or to utilize Medicaid, because Medicare, private insurance, none of that will support your long-term care and living needs. So all I'm saying is it's a good idea long ahead of time just to know how much all of these things cost and what you can or can't afford to do. And some of it may mean having a conversation with your adult child or a friend to say, my plan is to move in with you. And that is wonderful. That is a perfect plan. It just needs to be talked about before it's go time.
Certainly, yeah. I think that communication piece is really important. And you touched on a good point there I wanted to kind of talk about. And something we talk about with long-term care a lot is there's kind of, it's a spectrum of where you're at with needing that long-term care. On the furthest end, you're able to self-insure and you don't need a long-term care. And you have that money to be able to pay out for this housing if you ever need it. Or this assistance if you ever need it. And on the other side of the spectrum is Medicaid. So you're eligible for Medicaid. I believe it's $2,000 in total assets that you have. And in that situation, the government comes in and is able to help with this as well. Anywhere in the middle is kind of a situation where probably need some sort of long-term care insurance and some plan to be able to help with kind of bridging this gap if something were to ever happen to where you need that long-term care assistance.
You are absolutely right. It's that middle ground where most of us are, where there are not a lot of great options. And even there's no perfect plan for it either. So the best we can all do is to think about it ahead of time and just kind of temper your expectations and know what your options are. But for sure, the financial piece of it is just one of the foundations of it. If you have this vision of living in your second half, how are you going to pay for it? And let's talk about that before we're scrambling. So the 7th one is to toss it. Just pare down. Minimize your stuff and your sense of self. And I know that sounds weird. I mean, the stuff part is easy. I mean, I've encountered several hoarding situations with older adults, and it is a heavy burden to navigate. But the self part too is to start thinking in terms of, not winning or achieving or what I can do, but how can I mentor or support others, because I think that's part of the life lessons too, is that we have special strengths and have wisdom to share with other people to help keep the cycle going. So anyway, let's see. The last 2, communicate. That's kind of near. I should have I should have reconfigured this and put finance and communication at the top of the list, although it's hard to figure out what's the most important, but
Yeah.
communication is everything to um, this conversation. It's so important to be transparent and open and have conversations often with the people who are in your life, your loved ones, the people who are gonna support you. That's a big deal. And the last one is to have a transportation game plan. I call it buckling up, but just, you know, what will happen if you can't drive anymore? Be ready for that because it probably will happen one of these days, but it doesn't have to be a horrible situation. I mean, now we use ride hailing apps so much. I mean, all of that. Uber is so normalized, and then there's GoGo Grandparent and lots of other things that we can all use to, yeah.
What's Go-Go
And
Grandparent?
then
I'm unfamiliar with
it's
that.
just oh, GoGo Grandparent. Yeah, it's an app kind of like Uber, but it helps caregivers schedule rides for their people, and it makes it
Interesting.
easier for the person loved one to do it too. Yes, something to know about for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And then also, transportation. Just be aware of what transportation needs are nearby, or resources are nearby, like bus stops, and if you live in a city where there's uh, metro transportation, just to use that before you have to.
Definitely,
So
definitely. Now, I think you
those are
brought
the
up a
top
lot of
10. That's
yeah, those are all really, really important. I know you mentioned them as concrete steps, the musts. I certainly agree. I think those are all things that need to consider and need to get done um, as soon as possible. And it's something that I've noticed with a lot of clients that they'll drag their feet in terms of, okay, I want all of my money to go to charity or whatever it might be, so I don't really need to think about this. And one of the big points I like to make there is, okay, so even if the will isn't the top priority, a medical directive and power of attorney are both really, really important as well. Those advanced directives, as you mentioned, if something were to happen and you're incapacitated, it's important that your wishes are understood and um, acknowledged by whoever's taking care of you. And then I've seen horror stories of people who've been incapacitated and unable to take their required minimum distributions from their IRAs, and then they get penalized because no
mhm,
one's able to take it out on their behalf because they didn't set up a power of attorney. And so a lot of different things which are
right.
really important to just go and get set up as far as working with an estate planning attorney to get these different items done.
When you started, you were talking about your horrific plane experience, but those kinds of things can happen this is not a problem for adults who are 80 and over. This is not
Mhm.
just a problem for centenarians. These are conversations that we need to have now because we don't know when that, you know,
Yeah.
near death experience could send us in a different direction.
Yeah. And I know a lot of these that you mentioned. So creating a death binder,
Mhm.
getting the will, power of attorney, medical directives, talking about your finances. I think all of them kind of link into communication,
Yes.
because you want to do all of that, and then you want to make sure that you've communicated that with your loved ones to where if something were to happen to you, they know where this death binder is. They know where these different things are to be able to use them and make sure that they're admiring what was important to you and have all of this information in place. So I think it all comes down to communication as well, and
Mhm.
it's something that we like to do with our clients, in having these conversations with their children. God forbid something were to happen to them, that they're familiar with us and know where their money is. I think if you're using a different advisor or whatever it might be, I think it's important to establish that connection and make sure that they know who you're working with for your money, and something were to happen, and we've seen it on our end is we reach out after something happens and they never heard of us, and they're confused and don't know what's going on. And I think kind of making these different introductions, bringing it back to communication is always really, really important.
I agree.
So let's touch on some of the shoulds. I don't know if we have enough time to go through
Yeah.
all 10. Do you have one or two that stand out to you, or you think are important to address? And that's a hard thing to ask. I know they're all important, but
Well, yeah. Well, and or pick one that's relevant to your clients, especially. But it's the last one. Walk your walk, and that's to embrace a legacy mindset and to practice empathy, humility, and gratitude. I really like the idea of embracing a legacy mindset while we're still living and you know having finding joy in life and being on full steam, because that's how we're going to be remembered later. And if we can think now, how do I want to be remembered? What legacy do I want to leave? Whether that's a financial legacy, if it's an example, or as some kind of moral example, do it now. Start thinking about that, and especially with financial planning. If your big legacy is to leave, a nest egg for your children or for someone special in your life, then the time is now to start, living with that in mind. And I just think that is so important, just as a concept to keep in mind. As we start enjoying and thriving in the second half of life.
certainly. And I think it's something. It kind of comes back to it's communication as well, in terms
Mhm.
of, okay, what's important to you with this money, or this like for your legacy, and communicating that with your next generation, or whoever that might be going to. And I think it's worth pointing out that sometimes that's a hard conversation to have. It's an
Mhm.
awkward conversation to say, okay, when I die, I want you to do this, that, or the other with this money. And um we recognize that, but I think it's something that's very important to do, and um not really put it off, because again, life happens. And having these conversations about legacy is kind of that next step in saying, okay, where do I want my money to go is one thing, but then where do I want it to go once they have it, I think is another. How do I want them to use it is another, and is really important, and something that goes a long way for the next generation as well.
I completely agree. And maybe if you're you want your legacy to be saving the trees, you can
Yeah.
establish a fund or some kind of foundation to make sure that happens. There are ways to, as you know, much more than I do, that you can make that happen. But it's thinking about it during your living that makes it possible, and communicating it with others. So yeah.
Certainly, certainly. Well, I know we could probably talk about
Mhm.
this for another hour or so, but definitely don't want to get into all the material in your book. Want
Yeah.
our listeners to um, go out and read it for themselves. Where's a good place to be able to find your book?
Well, you can go to good old Amazon and search Barton, my last name, and Grand Plans 2.0, and find that and the workbook there. Or you can go to my website, which is mygrandplans.com. And on that website, I have links to where you can purchase my books. In addition to Grand Plans 2.0, I've also just published 3 books that focus on some of the more specific areas of mindful aging preparation, which is kind of the woohoo term for it.
Yeah.
But there's one that deals with the financial piece. then the advanced directives piece, and then the legal portion of it. So you can find those books on Amazon and on my website as well.
Perfect. Well, we'll try to link some of those as well in the description of the video and in the podcast. But Susanna, I really appreciate you taking the time to explain a little bit more about your book and your experiences.
Yeah, well, thank you. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I hope more people are out there having similar ones. So it's important.
Certainly. Keep it top of mind. And make sure to think about these things with you and your loved ones, but because we know life happens. But thanks again, Susanna.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Remember, the views expressed are not necessarily those of Beam Wealth Advisors. All content is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as an endorsement of any third party or their views, or as a solicitation or offer to sell securities or provide investment, tax, legal, or consulting services. We believe the information presented to be reliable, but it is not guaranteed for accuracy or completeness. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Hypothetical returns do not reflect actual trading and may not be indicative of the performance of any specific investment. Always consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Additional information, including management fees and expenses, is provided on our Form ADV Part 2, available upon request or at the SEC's Investment Advisor Public Disclosure website, advisorinfo.sec.gov.